Good morning, I'm Tom Belford with BayBuzz, and with me is Sophie Price, our political reporter, and we're here today to interview Lawrence Yule, National Party candidate for MP in the Tukituki constituency. Good morning, Lawrence.
Good morning, both of you. Nice to have you here.
We have a whole set of questions for you here. We'll just dive right into it, if you know.
Absolutely.
All right, so Lawrence, you've been a elected official for over 20 years now, and presumably looking for another 10 or so. What is it inside you as a person that makes you want to do this?
Well, I do enjoy public office. I didn't know I would when I first started it, but it's been a learning curve, and I love it. And I think what I like about it is every day I see people where I can make a difference to their lives. I get asked to help people with a lot of things, whether they're corporates or private individuals, and I can do some things to make a difference, and that gives me a sense of satisfaction, and I enjoy it. So I enjoy public service, I think, more than I ever would the commercial world. So that's something I think I'm reasonably good at, and I'm happy doing it.
All right, well, some people complain that you're more focused on your political career than you are on the people of Hastings and the Tukituki electorate, that you're not a man of your word. An example of this would be that not so many months ago you told the people of Hastings that you'd be there as their full-time mayor. What do you have to say to this?
Well, I'm not focused on my political career, actually. I'm focused on what I can do for the people of this district and for the people of Tukituki should I be elected. And I accept that I was asked a direct question at the mayoral forum, would I serve out my 3 years? And I said yes, and I accept that this is a change in circumstances. But before I reached that position, I'd been asked to consider standing against Craig Foss. I talked to him about it. He said he was standing for another 3 years. I took him at his word, and I made my decision to stand for the mayoralty. And equally, I've given a lot of service to this district. 15 years as the mayor. I now have an opportunity to work in a different environment for the people of the same district. So I'm not going into a corporate job where I'm walking away for a $500,000 package. I have the ability to use my skills to advance, the lives of people that live here. And I think most people will respect and understand that.
In the wake of the Havelock North water crisis, water has become a big election issue in the last 12 months. What are our biggest issues with water here in the Bay, as you see them?
I think water actually, and the management of it, is going to be the biggest issue for the next decade or so, and how we get our head around what's happening. So the Havelock North water crisis, is a terrible thing to happen to any community. But what I've learnt in this is actually it could happen sort of anywhere in New Zealand. And our defence against water quality for human consumption has largely been reliant on chlorination. And the places that don't have chlorination, there is a real risk in terms of contamination of the supply or the network. But as we've got further and further into this, and as we've looked at what is happening with our aquifers, and we've found new water, that to me is the biggest issue, particularly on the Heretaunga Plains. So the understanding of what's going on in our aquifer, where that new water might be coming from, I think that poses real issues that we don't understand yet, and we need to get our head around. So the long-term sustainability of how we manage water, whether I think we've got a pretty good handle on the surface water, even though we want to improve water quality, but I don't think we know enough about what's happening in the groundwater. And so I think the combination of that and how you work out water storage are the two real big issues that face this region. We can talk about a lot of other things, but water is a primary part of living, and it's inherent to people, it's ingrained in them, they need it, we all need it, so we need to look after and need to work out how we deal with it. All other things are sort of secondary, and that's been a huge learning for me as part of this. And if you look at an upside of a very bad situation, the contamination, I think if we get our head around what's happening to land use, water quality, both in the streams and below ground, that, we need to get onto that.
You did say when you announced that you were going to stand for national, or you put your hat in the ring, that you were going to fix the Hastings water issues by mid-year. Yeah. How do you plan on doing this?
Well, by mid-year we would have had a substantial conversation with the community and made investment decisions around UV treatment. So, to put it in a nutshell, if we'd had chlorination in the system, nobody would have got sick. But the people here do not want chlorine in their system. I'm hearing that loud and clear. And because we have young water potentially getting into our aquifer somewhere, the risk of that is you've got protozoa in there which are not treated by chlorination. So where we've found young water, we're going to have to put UV treatment plants. They are millions of dollars, probably $1 million per plant. And we've put Brookvale Road in, about 800,000. We're going to have to do Wilson Road, we'll probably have to do Frimley. So the conversation we'll have with the community is, if you don't want chlorination, we can make your water safe by doing this, and here is the money that's been allocated. And then we'll have to do that if we ever want chlorination to be removed. And I'm pretty confident we can make all of those decisions by the 30th of June.
Okay, well, let's jump up to some national issues and campaigning. This is the first time that you'll be running with, I'll call it the baggage of running as a party person with whatever that party represents, whereas in the past you've run on your own personal appeal and record and so forth. So now you have a party to defend as well. How will that change how you approach the campaign and how you present yourself?
Well, it will be very different, because running for a party, the party vote is everything. That is the primary focus of the party, and winning seats and electorates is secondary. But I think the National Party is in very good stead electorally nationally. It's had a long period in government now. It has done incredibly well, in my view, in managing New Zealand's economy through the financial crisis, and we're being rewarded for that now. You know, there are growth pains, I accept that, but the economy is in really good health, and I think people can see that. So it will be different, and I have to learn the difference of running under a political slogan, for want of a better word, or a party. But I'm going to a party that I strongly support, that I believe most New Zealanders actually strongly support, so I don't think it'll be too much of an issue.
So you don't think there are a lot of people out there who might say, I like Lawrence as a person, you know, I think he's done a good job as mayor, but, you know, I've had enough of national.
Oh, there could be. But equally on the other side, I already know that people who died in the Wool Labour Party people have said to me they will probably still vote Labour, but they think I've been a really good mayor and I'll be a really good MP, and they're happy to support me in that way. So I think it goes both ways.
Okay, your Labour opponent says the national government has let Hawke's Bay down in areas like housing, education and police. What do you have to say to that?
I disagree with that. I think the fundamentals of what the national government has done have been to get us through in really good economic health through the financial recession. They made some decisions around things like policing that meant that they were actually forcing efficiencies out of the police force, and I was concerned about some of that in terms of less police on the ground, etc. They've now addressed that and are going to add 1,000 extra police over a period of time to deal with that. So I think they've responsibly handled that, and I think, yes, I'm worried about crime, and I have been, but I'm pleased that basically all the political parties have now seen that as an issue, and the national government has just announced a whole significant investment in new police. Housing, yes, I'm worried about housing, but housing is actually an issue that is spawned out of success. You know, in a recessionary time, housing wasn't really too much of an issue, but since the economy started booming again, there are people that don't have access to accommodation. We can't find enough builders, enough sections, all those things that go with that. And I think they haven't let us down. They're an issue to be dealt with as part of a strong, growing economy.
There must be disagreements you have with the National Party. What might some of those be?
I don't think they're disagreements. I haven't gone in there to disagree. I've gone in there to try and change some things which I fundamentally believe in. And I don't think, for instance, I think we need to be really careful in how we manage the economic growth of New Zealand versus the management of our environment, because the two are intrinsically linked. And I want to make sure that whatever decisions we make, we understand the holistic picture. I also want to encourage and give strength to the government to deal with climate change, for instance. Since the Paris Accord, the government has clearly got on board with what needs to happen. But actually these are bold, difficult decisions, and they need to be led and supported, and I hope that I can get in there and have some influence around that.
So what about an issue like GMO-free?
Yeah. So GMO-free, the government has a position that they prefer a national provision of how you manage GMOs. I have a strong mandated position in this electorate that I've stood for, and the government is well aware of, that I actually think we can add significant economic value to what we produce here by being GMO free. Now all I can do in going to a political party is advocate that position. If I'm outvoted by the democratic wishes of that party, then I have to accept that decision. That is part of being part of a collective government.
Okay. Excuse me. What are your top 3 policy program goals if elected, and how would you go about implementing this?
Well, the first policy goal is really a local one. If I'm elected, and regardless of whether I'm in government or opposition, I'll be a backbencher. And in reality, what I want to do for the first 3 years is build up the electorate organisation, but in particularly spend my time trying to resolve some of the big water issues we face. So for me, I am convinced we need to find a way of doing water storage in central Hawke's Bay and on the Heretaunga Plains. And the Ruataniwha Dam, in its concept, the theory behind it I agree with. The execution of it, in my view, has been poorly done. But if you look at climate change and you look at what's happening to the environment, then somehow we need to find a way of storing water. And I think there is a way of storing water, keeping the environmental aspects of that in check and managed, and managing and working with the iwi interests so everybody agrees here is a thing that is worthwhile doing, all the concerns have been covered off, and let's get on with it. I do not accept that we spent 25 odd million on the Ruataniwha Dam, not a sod of dirt's been turned, and we're going to walk away from it. We need to do better than that. And I think because I know a lot of the politicians and a lot of the key players, I want to reset that conversation. And I also think we need to, based on what I'm understanding with the aquifer and things here in Hastings, that we need to reset the conversation about whether we need water storage to supplement and support the Heretaunga Plains aquifer as well.
Yeah,
that's the first one. The second one really is I'm really worried about pea. Pseudoephedrine and all the impacts of pea is ruining lives in our communities, and I actually want it eliminated. I know that's hard because people turn to other drugs, but we've effectively shut down the supply of psychoactive substances. And I think I cannot get my head around why pea is so readily available, is destroying so many lives, and I want to be a strong advocate within the government of finding policies that will harden that up. I talk to police every day about what they're dealing with. What they're dealing with mostly is burglaries associated with people who are trying to fuel their drug habit, and most of that is around pea. And pea is not detectable in the system after 24 hours, so people are going to work. They're passing drug tests after 24 hours, whereas marijuana and things take 3 weeks. So I think it's a scourge in society and we need to do a lot more about it.
Okay.
And the third one really I think is around how we manage and look after the social issues we face. So in simple terms, we have a whole big parts of this community that I represent now in Hastings, and that's fundamentally part of the Tukituki electorate, who are not connected with education, have poor quality housing arrangements, have poor family lives, and they're actually ending up as a constant drain on the rest of society. And if you look at the labour demands for this region going forward, they actually need to be successful. So I strongly support Bill Innes' social investment strategy. I strongly support the intervention of the state in an absolutely targeted way to try and fix this. And probably we live in a beautiful part of New Zealand. You know, if you've got a good job and a roof over your head and you're reasonably well educated, you want for very little here. But there are some people that are not in that position, sometimes through no fault of their own, often through poor parenting decisions. But actually they need to be part of the economy and successful rather than a burden.
Okay. The Hawke's Bay Gisborne region has the highest unemployment rate in the country at 8.1%. What will you do to bring this figure down?
Well, first of all, Gisborne and Hawke's Bay are put together in a scientific way, mesh blocks. The Hawke's Bay side of that is much better. The worst part is in Gisborne and Wairoa, but it is higher than the national average. And it goes back to what I've said. It's about the economy and it's about jobs. And it's about making some of these people that are not engaged and work ready. We have a whole lot of people that could work, and for a whole lot of reasons they're not. And it seems amazing to me that we would bring people in from out of the region to do some of our work, and we've still got people on the unemployment benefit. So the whole thing needs to, I support strong job growth that is fundamentally underpinned by a strong economy, which I'm hugely praising of the national government for. And as we're booming, those numbers should drop. If they don't, we have a fundamental and systematic sort of unemployment issue, which I think we do have in some parts of our community that needs to be addressed.
So you have some ambitious plans, but you have to get elected to pursue them. You haven't exactly been elected by landslides, I would say, in your last goes at this. So there are people out there, presumably, who are looking for change, who say you're old news at this point. How do you respond to that? How do you deal with the people who want change?
Well, they are going to get change. I mean, I'm moving into a different role. A lot of people want to change from Craig Foss. Now they have an option to change for me. I will be doing something different to what I've been doing before. And yes, while you might say it's a small majority, I think the last one was 3,500. I've held my vote reasonably consistent over the last 3 elections, despite the Havelock North water crisis, and have always been around 11,500 or 12,000 votes in this area. So I think, yes, some people will want change, but actually they need to weigh that up with what they're getting. And I think those people that wanted Craig Foss gone, and there was a number, they now have somebody new to vote for. They have a choice out of Anna Lorck or myself and Chris Purley, I think, are the candidates. And they need to make the assessment as to who is the best person to deliver the best outcomes in Wellington. And I think I bring a unique blend of skills that the others don't, and that is I am well connected to this electorate. I know this electorate well. I've been the leader of 15 years. I've had massive experience already in the parliamentary system, even though I haven't been in it as an MP. Mm-hmm. And the blend of that, I think, is a very strong thing to advance this region.
So let's talk about your leading opponent a moment, Anna Lorck. Anna Lorck, I guess the negatives, as it were, with Anna might be that she's perceived as someone who jumps around on every issue, that she's kind of aggressive and loud in the media and so forth. Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Oh, I'm not going to characterise an opposing candidate. Mm-hmm. But what I would say is people actually know what I'm like. They've watched me, and whether they like me or they don't, they've seen me through good and bad times over the 15 years as the Mayoralty. Mm-hmm. I haven't jumped around on a whole lot of issues. Yes, I've made some changes to decisions like running for election now versus running for the Mayoralty. I've done that consciously because I think I can represent the people of this district, which I love, in a good and better way than I've been able to previously. Now, I operate on a very transparent, open style of leadership. People can ask me anything. My phone is on the website. So I've got nothing to hide, actually. And when you get new people, they have new ideas, and they might jump around, and that's acceptable. That's what happens when you're new. But I'm experienced at doing this. I love this region, and I love the people that I represent, and I want to continue to do that in a different form.
Jumping away from her as a person, though, what is it about what Labour Party positions would you have most disagreement with?
Well, I don't think the Labour government actually has a plan. And I know it's harder when you're in opposition to have a plan. But I think I look at Labour's decision to invest $20 million, in a wood factory in Gisborne. Well, where does that stop and start? Why would you do that in Gisborne versus anywhere else? Or if it's part of a bigger package, what is the bigger package? And that's what you've got to weigh up when you're in government. And that's the difference between being a local politician and a central one. Whatever you do in one place, you automatically create an expectation in another. So I think that the national government has been very good at balancing the economic constraints we're under, keeping the books tight, working through the recession and coming out the other end. And there are things that they need to address. So they're looking at investments in housing, police, prisons, all those types of things, but we're doing that from a strong base. What I see in Labour is no macroeconomic policy, really, that is either appealing or visionary enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Excuse me. We've come now we'll do a speed drill. So basically, I'll give you, we've seen 20 words or less on key issues, taxing sugar.
No, I don't support that. I think that's an education thing rather than a tax.
Okay. Assisted dying.
Yes, I do support that. I think I've seen a number of people who have died in agonising circumstances, and I think there needs to be a different option for them.
That's not a national position, though, is it?
No, but I think when you get to that, that would probably be a conscience vote. I don't know that for sure because I'm new to this, but my position, my personal position is that that's something I support.
Charging for water.
I think if you charge for water, you need to charge everyone, and I think that may well be where we end up, but I think it needs to be consistent.
Okay. GMO-free Hawke's Bay.
Yes, I've supported that up until now, and I will continue to do so. But as I've just said in the previous part of the interview, if I can't convince my parliamentary colleagues, should I get into the caucus, that's what they want, then the party line will be the one that's adopted.
Okay. The Ruatana Dam.
I support water storage, and I think we need to find a way of irrigating the Ruatana for plains, but I don't think the current model actually works.
Can we go back to the GMO?
Yes.
I mean, you've been very staunch in your support for the position that what appears to be all the leading players in Hawke's Bay who are in the ag business world view as very important, and they see it as important because of its commercial opportunities in particular. You have a government that just doesn't seem to get that picture, and you say you're going to go in and try to convince them otherwise, and I'm sure you make an effort like that, but do you really think that's going to work? Do you really think you're going to get them to back off of this position? And if they don't, do you think that's really injurious to Hawke's Bay?
I don't think it's injurious, but I think it's a lost opportunity. That's how I see it. And I will go in and talk to, and I've talked to the Prime Minister about this, and the previous Prime Minister about this. So I've done my bit in terms of articulating why I think this is important. But, you know, it's likely that any government will be formed with a coalition of parties. So it's not just a national government decision. But I don't think it will be overall injurious. I just think we could add significant value. If you look at the government's target about lifting export as a percentage of GDP, you can't just do that out of increasing production. You need to add value. And I think the thing that has been lost in this GMO debate currently is that people, for whatever reason, think that I or this councillor are against medical research, stuff you can buy, you know, medicines, stuff you can buy on the shelves. We're actually talking about the field release of genetically modified material into the natural environment. And if you look at the value that can be created by not doing that, then you have a very different conversation. And I think I haven't had a chance to explain that to caucus colleagues, and I'd want to do that should I get in there.
All right, so let's wrap this up here. Why don't you take a minute to tell folks who are watching this interview why they should vote for you?
Well, I think I'd be proud to be the Member of Parliament in Tukituki. I love this region. I've lived here all my life. I see immense opportunity on the back of a very solid economic performance at the moment. I think we can do a lot of other things way better. As an MP, I'm offering to work tirelessly for the people of this electorate and spend some time in Wellington to make a difference in terms of policies. People know how I operate. They know that I won't let people down, that I'll work hard for them, and I have very good connections both locally and in Wellington, and they're a unique set of skills. And I just ask that people would think about their party vote in particular, which is the #1 vote. They should support National. And if they judge my performance on what I've done and know my abilities, then I'd humbly ask that they support me to be the electorate MP as well.
Fine. Thank you for that. All set?
I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Thank you.